And there we are. And there's our old friends, JJ and Desiree Hurtak, Paul Hynek, Tricia McCannon. Tricia and Phil go back a long way. I think you went to Egypt together, right?
Yeah.
We certainly did.
And of course, we
Listen,
love
great to see
JJ
the
and
doctors.
Desiree and Joan.
Great to see everybody. Mark,
Right. And
Yeah,
Mark
that
Sims, who was a
the
special
doctors,
guest of ours,
Hurtak.
and
Well,
that was
my
awesome, Phil. That was
good
great.
friend
We
Carolyn
were
Cory.
going to
Wow,
talk
we should
about-
just all hang out together here.
I know, right?
started,
This looks so
Caroline,
beautiful. Hold on, I gotta take a photo of
Think
us.
about thinking in divine pictures.
Mhm.
Those divine pictures will become our reality. You know.
Well, that's what the
Enoch, I
Hurtaks
tell
do
you.
so well. They create these pictograms. What do you call them, JJ? The
Scenario abstract.
Osmograms.
cosmograms, and they are, and the Keys of Enoch, which is their work, JJ and Desiree's work, are full of these new encodings of cosmograms, pictures that take us to higher levels. So anyway, we're about
in the mid-late 70s, the Keys of Enoch, the Book of Knowledge, that lit a spark in me. It's never more than 3 feet away from me. Along with the
Nice.
Sophia, the Overself Awakening, everything. I
Great.
just love them. I love them all.
All right,
All
so let's transition into the panel, right?
well,
Should we do
this is the UFO panel, so we're here with a,
I mean, we are in it.
Firstly,
We're
I
in
wanted
New
to
York.
share something in
Yeah.
order to kind of split them as 2 different things here, because I wanted to share something with everybody before we begin. So I'm
okay.
just going to go ahead and do that. Firstly, I just want to go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm saying,
Okay,
go ahead,
cool.
do it.
All right, so everybody, I just sent an email out like 30 minutes ago, so we have a lot of people joining on YouTube now. We have more people coming into the Zoom, so welcome to everybody who just joined us. If you haven't been here for the last 2 days, this is the Portal to Ascension Conference. If you're on YouTube, please do go ahead and subscribe. We're going to put out a lot more content like this. We always do. We have like 5 different premieres a week or more. And I want to share with you guys that this event is the 4th annual Portal to Ascension Conference. However, as of this year, we're doing it twice a year because it's doing so well. So we're going to go spring every single year. We have a Portal to Ascension Conference, which will be 4 days. And then in October this year, we have the 5-day online Portal to Ascension Conference. And if you remember the 5-day one last October, it was like, whoa. And but then next year, we go online for spring. But in October 2022, we're going to be here. And I want to invite everybody to come to the Miracle Springs and Resort Spa in Desert Hot Springs. Yep, right down the street from Joan. And this is where we're going to be. So we're going live October 2022. All of you are invited. Hopefully you can be there. And here's the website. So beautiful. I'll just show you a couple of images here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's going to be not only, we're going to have like, there's just going to be a lot going on there. And I'm actually booking it now. So the event page for this will be up in 2 months, which was a year and a half before we're going to be doing this event. And it's just going to be back to live events, right? So we'll do the spring one. We'll do the spring one, which will be online always, Portal to Ascension online spring event. And then we'll do the live one back again in October 2022. And just to show you the context of where it is in the world, let's zoom out here in Google Maps. Boom, boom, boom.
Well, it's the heart vortex of the planet now.
There we go. So make your way over there. And if you're all across the other side of the country and need to get here, start making your way there now, because it's going to be incredible. So that's what just want to share with you right there. I'll share some more information tomorrow about our new website and all that. But thank you all so much for being here and being a part of this conference. So
Neil,
let's
you
do this.
rock. You totally
rocked.
rock.
And you're only a half a mile from my studio, the Angel Art Studio, just in case you're curious.
Beautiful art. Really magical.
Just
angel.
saying.
Very
Well,
charming.
you know, everyone appreciates because the effort. I mean, you're doing this. It's not to make money. It's not to get fame. It's to provide a service for humanity, and that's why I think you're so successful, and bringing all these great minds together to share their knowledge and wisdom and experience. I mean, just on this panel alone, we have some
Pretty epic.
phenomenal people with, I would say, out of this world experiences, one way to put that. So this is what we're here for the UFO panel, which is a wrap up, which is really kind of critical these days. And these are such really key people in this field that are joining us today. My good friend, Tricia McCannon, who who actually has a great chapter in angels. What was the name of that book about angels that you?
That was the first of the 4 books. It was Dialogues with the Angels. And yes, there's a chapter about going to your apartment and our amazing conversations about consciousness.
Right, right. And then, but you've been studying the UFO phenomena for a long time. And you have a really good hand. I know you have to leave soon, so you'll go on first after I introduce everyone. My very good friends, Dr. JJ and Dr. Desiree Hurtak, who are part of the collaborators in my new book right here. You can see it up on screen. That's my new book, Making Contact, which Carolyn Cory is also a part of. So we've been on like the last maybe 20 days, we're having ongoing dialogues, me and the Hurtaks, about what this disclosure process is all going to be about. And also Paul Hynek is here, who's the son of really the first legitimate UFO investigator, the one who set the pace with Close Encounters, the first, second, and third kind, J. Allen Hynek. And so he has a lot of insight into the phenomena and what its evolution and where we are now. Also joining us is Mark Sims, who has become one of my best friends. It's like I can't go a day without looking at his picture, speaking to him, or getting a message. So thanks, Mark. And you.
Oh, thank you, Alan. What a pleasure to be here with everyone. And of course, we have a big event coming up
Yes.
today. So I'll let you talk about that.
No. Do you have a screen share of that? Because why don't you put a screen share up? I'll introduce everyone. I just want to say about Mark found himself in the middle of the disclosure phenomena, and it's a progressive thing, when he brought Danny Sheehan onto Grant Cameron's show, and Danny Sheehan had acknowledged right there for the first time that he is the attorney for Luis Elizondo. So if you don't know who Luis Elizondo is, stay tuned, but he worked for the Pentagon, and now he came out, and he was really at the forefront of delivering the key witness testimony, in a sense, about what disclosure is coming down. And he was the one on 60 Minutes, if you saw 60 Minutes last Sunday, where he says to Bill Whitaker says, hey, Luis, are UFOs real? Luis says, come on, Bill, we're already past that. The Pentagon has admitted UFOs are real, and he didn't say where they're from, but we know they're not from here. And there's also here today my good friend Caroline Cory, who's made 2 amazing films. She's making another film about ET contact and science, and her work as a bridge between the higher thoughts, the superhuman abilities, and how to bring that into the earth plane is really one of the most important documents and one of the most important levels of advanced learning that we have on the planet. So she is also in my new book, Making Contact, where she relates her experiences of interfacing with these ETs starting at 5 years old. My favorite story in what you tell me, is when you're 5 years old and you're Christmas decorating and your parents are arguing and you're seeing these 2 people arguing, and say, what does this have to do with Jesus and love and Christmas? So, and then these beings appear to you. So we'll tell that too. That's one of my favorite stories in the whole book. I know Tricia has to leave. Tricia, great to see you. Do you have anything? I think because disclosure is so close and we got this breaking news, and what's your insights into where we are now, Tricia, and how people can prepare for the fact that we're not alone? So what do you think?
Well, I think it's a very complicated puzzle. To be honest with you, I've had contact since I was a little girl. When I was about 7, I was taken on board a ship by some very human Pleiadians. They were wonderful. They, the guy who was there, it was a round domed, huge round dome we were in. He pointed to the sky and he said, when you look into the sky at night and you see the stars, we come from around a planet around one of those stars. And, you know, I was like 7. It was like, well, that makes perfect sense to me. And he said, we've come to your planet many times throughout the centuries. And, you know, he wound up energetically touching my third eye. And I found myself actually going back in time when I was a very tall human extraterrestrial man that was involved in building the complex under the Giza Plateau. And this is in the 100 years prior to the Great Flood, where we knew that was happening. And that was the beginning of a whole series of contacts that I've had my whole life with higher dimensional beings, including beings, as Phil was talking about, that are, you know, really, they are highly conscious, like that have bird heads and like eagle's heads and owl heads and falcon heads and and even higher. And of course, I've worked with masters since I was 19. I'm a very high initiate in a path that teaches people how to access these higher planes and to travel in those other worlds. And that's why I gave everyone that Way of Truth website, because that teaches those processes. And that's something I'm a teacher of, which is I'm always a student of the mysteries and a teacher of the mysteries. When we talk about the UFO phenomena, I think we're dealing with a very difficult situation, because basically, like Phil said, I think that the original inhabitants of this planet were very high consciousness, more angelic humans that had high levels of telepathy and so forth. Some of those races, they were genetically very pure, but we have been infiltrated, so to speak, throughout the many, many millennia by many groups that have interbred with us. And there's definitely very aggressive strands. The reptilian strands are pretty aggressive. And consequently, they have been working behind the scenes to create discord, division, darkness, lies, chaos, etc., for a really, really long time. And you have more benevolent species, some of which are human, some of which are not, who are really protective of us and want to help us. But, you know, the Galactic Federation, which is composed of over 100 worlds, has the law of non-interference. So when they made contact with the United States in 1950s, and we turned them down because we would rather do business with the little gray aliens and get technology and have power and feed the military industrial complex, the Galactic Federation had no choice but to step back. So they've made contact with people like me and probably people on this panel. And some of those people have come forward and some of those people aren't. Some of those people are doing their work in secret or in silence, or they're teachers, but they're not necessarily talking about their contacts. Some of them may be conscious of them. Some may only know when they undergo hypnosis. But they've also instituted a program of having people like myself, who has a big history on this planet, but who has a very big history up there, incarnate. And many of you are those. Many of our listeners may be among those people. Those are what we call the star seeds, you know, the indigos, you know, there are different names for these. Basically, we're people who come in, and from the time we were young, we were pretty darn conscious, and we could see a bigger picture. And, you know, we were already on the page of universal consciousness.
I think it does prepare us in a way for a bigger event that's outside the normal reality. So I'll come back to you, Trish. But Carolyn has to leave like soon. So Carolyn, where do you think we are? Because you have some inside connections to the ETs themselves, like JJ, Desiree, Mark. I'm not sure about Paul, but where you think we are in relationship to these other life forms, because you have experience of their existence, and what do they want for us now in terms of this disclosure movement that we're really in the middle of?
Are you asking me, Alan, or somebody
I was
else?
asking Carolyn, and then I'll come back to you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Hey, Alan, thanks. I think, first of all, disclosure is very confusing because I think there's different levels, different layers, different aspects of what we call disclosure. I think a lot of it has already been disclosed. I mean, look at it. It's just in the news. Everybody is saying this is real, this is happening. So that part of the disclosure, I think, has already happened. Another part of the disclosure are the experiencers. I mean, we've had experiencers talking about what they've seen, what they've touched, what they know, how they felt, physiological changes, measurable things. I mean, for years now. So I think that part of the disclosure is already past and done and continues to be. I think the part of disclosure that everybody thinks it should look like is the issue here. I think, unless the president of the United States shows up and tells us, yes, UFOs are real and this is what they look like and this is what happened and this and that, or unless we actually see, a spaceship land and an ET comes out of it and says, hi, Earthlings or whatever, that is what we are thinking disclosures should look like. And I think the more we think along those terms, the more it won't happen. Because especially that now with this AI reality where everything is fake, not only it's faked, but you can literally with AI create a whole movie, a whole, story, a whole whatever to make anybody think anything. So I guarantee that if something like this were to happen, where somebody comes out to say, yes, some official is going to come out and say, yes, we've been dealing with ETs and this is what happened. Somebody else is going to come out and say, no, that wasn't true. I mean, it's already happening that way. We think that the government is just one voice. It isn't. I guarantee that within the Pentagon, one guy in his office knows everything and the truth, and the guy next to him has no clue. And they both think that is the truth. And so when you have one guy say something, the other guy is going to say no, because that's what he believes is the truth. So that is the problem. This is human nature that we're dealing with. And that sort of disclosure where we think it's going to come in that way, I think is a problem.
So what do you think should happen then? What, you have any ideas how the world, the government, I mean, maybe you're saying it should be a people's movement, which is what me and Mark and JJ and Desiree have been talking about, making contacts an inside job, basically. It's and Tricia said, yes. So go ahead.
I think that's, first of all, that's more truthful. And, because of everything that's happening, not to get into politics, I don't want to go there, or the COVID thing or whatever. But I think the COVID thing is a great example of the mess. I mean, here comes this authority figure that tells us it's this, this, and that. The next day is another authority figure, government or medical or CDC, that tells us the opposite. And then something else, and then something else. This is a perfect example where we don't really know what the real truth is. We have to either believe this guy or that guy or whatever. And so that the disclosure would look something like this, because that is human nature. And so because of that, I think the only solution, what it should look like, is to bring back the power to you. To watch, to listen to everybody, watch what, this guy's saying, that guy's saying, our friends and the non-friends, and it doesn't matter. Right. And then, just shut it all out.
Right.
Shut it all out and say, and go back to your internal ability to discern and to really know the truth for yourself. So if I'm doing this, you're doing this, Mark, Paul, everybody, those people who truly want to know the truth from inside out, do this, then I think we can manifest a real type of disclosure that is much more authentic and real. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's why I wrote this book up here, because it is just about going within, looking at our own consciousness and realizing we are part of a greater awareness, a greater cosmology of intelligence. And we're the universe is not out there. We are part of an integrative wholeness of life itself. So it's ridiculous that we are even having this discussion because
Exactly.
I mean, why isn't it just universally known that we're not alone in the universe? It's like, hello. So, but this is the case as it is. Thanks. We'll come back to you, Carolyn, and Paul Hynek, who's really been at the start of this. I mean, his father, J. Allen Hynek, I think really started the disclosure movement in the 60s. I mean, he was really a breakaway from the Project Blue Book, stood up for himself and started to really look seriously at this phenomenon. So, Paul, where do you think we are now in this movement? What do you think could be possible for the future here for the planet?
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Neil, for bringing us all together. And hello, everybody. I couldn't agree more with what Carolyn just said. I think disclosure in the bowels of the government is like a fractured fairy tale. Carolyn mentioned that one guy here knows something, somebody else knows something, and that's their truth. And then you can also add on to that, as I'm sure Carolyn would have had she had even more time to elucidate it, that they have different beliefs. And that's one of the things that Lou Elizondo has mentioned, that the belief system of some of those people would suppress what they got. And then add on top of that, what they want to happen.
Yes.
And then, you've got fiefdoms and turf battles with inside the government. It's not one monolithic block, as you and I talked about a bit yesterday, Alan.
Right.
It's this pell-mell, hodgepodge of people with different beliefs, different goals, and different levels of access. Then you've got like the CIA, then you got the nuclear bucket of a whole different type of information. And it's a mess. And also, like Carolyn said, it's getting to the point where with the deep fakes, nobody will believe. We used to think about Walter Cronkite narrating, the flying saucer landing on the lawn of the White House. Now nobody will believe any single newscaster because half the public won't like them. So the point of the government, I also think, I agree with Carolyn, that disclosure has already happened. It's a process, not an event. And the more it happens, the more the sort of global acceptance among people that aren't really in the field has been rising, so that if there is some kind of signal event, it'll be kind of like, oh, okay, finally, you guys got around to it. It's not letting us know, it's just you guys acknowledging what people already know around the world.
Well, maybe that's why the government's not going forward. First of all, they don't know how to explain this phenomenon, so they don't know what to say. They don't want to look helpless, but so maybe it is a citizens movement. It's an individual awakening, like Mark Sims. Mark Sims was a corporate guy. He went on a CE5 Skywatch and boom, his whole world completely changed. So Mark, you want to talk about like where you were, but your own evolution to being really at the forefront of this movement in a sense. Yeah. Wait, unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Back in 2012, I, as a skeptic, decided to go to a Stephen Greer 6-day retreat in Borrego Springs, California, and a ship materialized above our group on the 5th evening of this 6-day event. And later that night in my hotel room, when I was alone and unable to sleep, I had a visit from a being who called himself Tejbar, and that began this 13-day magic carpet ride with this celestial being who literally, merged with my body and then took me on an extra dimensional experience. I mean, that's the only way you can describe it. And it completely changed my life. It forced me to recalibrate my worldview. I was an atheist at the time. I'd been an atheist my entire adult life. And what I learned over that 13 days, was a 180-degree shift from that philosophy, from that, worldview. And part of my journey has been to continue this relationship, which I'm very lucky and blessed to have the privilege of having with this being Tejbar. I continue to learn from him. But what's more is that I want to confirm this, and I've done a lot of reading over the last 9 years since this took place. I've met a lot of people, and I'm on this quest to try to find out what is the real truth here, because people thought, my family literally thought I was going crazy when I was beginning to share with them what I was experiencing. And so I've been initially very conservative about what I share with people, but now, since I've confirmed what I know is to be true, and there's so many other people who've corroborated information that I otherwise didn't know about. I mean, like Philip earlier. I mean,
Phil Gruber, yeah.
I've never heard of this guy. I was lucky to catch the tail end of his presentation, but this guy is telling the truth. I mean, this is the real deal stuff. And when you start talking about angels and archangels and this whole hierarchy of multidimensional and ultra-dimensional beings that make up part of the cosmology of the universe, it's very confusing and it's hard to make sense of it. And you couple this cosmology, this very diverse and complex cosmology of these sentient beings, both physical and non-physical, on top of this, field and all the history of the witness accounts, and it's super confusing.
But we have to know that cosmology is real. I mean, most of us here have had some kind of contact with some other beings. And if that's not even talked about publicly, then everyone's left in the dark. So yeah, I appreciate you coming out. But what were you going to say? Yeah.
Well, I would just trying to, convey that I come from a background of, science. I'm a scientist, a computer science scientist, a computational chemist. And I got into renewable energies. That was my third business. So I've started 3 different companies. I've been very successful. This really switched, my thinking about and philosophy about reality. And what I am doing, and this began last year with the Harmonic Convergence 2020 event, is beginning to come out in full force to tell my story, because what was given to me over the last 9 years, beginning with that 13 days in 2012, is something that I really believe explains this new metaphysical paranormal world from a scientific standpoint. Right. And so spirituality and science are merging. And I see my role in all of this is to help explain it to a layperson in a way that makes sense, that they can wrap their head around, give them models and analogies that they can relate to, so they can understand what it is we're in contact with, and how this disclosure is going to unfold. And I don't have all the answers to the questions, but I definitely have some of the answers, some big ones.
That's why we're doing this panel, not just so the people listening can understand it more, because I think a lot of people listening already get this, but so who's ever out there, can take this information, add to their knowledge, and go out and talk to other people. It's sort of like UFO evangelism, I guess, but not quite, but it's spreading the news.
It's evangelism. It's good news. I'm an optimist about this. I certainly can relate and understand people who come from a more fear-based perspective on this, and that's rational, given the complexity and the weirdness and all that. But I happen to be an eternal optimist, more so than ever, about our future, and I'm really excited.
Me too. We are at a turning point in human history. We're right at the threshold. That's why I'm so excited. That also brings me to my really good friends. They've been taking good care of me here. And they also are real bridges between the spiritual, the ET, the new cosmology, and very practical science. So Dr. JJ Hurtak, Dr. Desiree Hurtak are really tuned into what's happening. They're at the forefront. And I have to say, Dr. JJ Hurtak is one of the longest time UFO investigators. Paul, he was with your father in Brazil in the 70s, looking at some of those Brazilian cases. JJ, you want to talk about that a little bit and your evolution as an investigator?
Well, first of all, I was trained as a social scientist at the University of California. I was part of the first disclosure conference in Washington, D.C. in 1995 with Dr. John Macklem, Harvard University. So most of my work has been out of the country, although Desiree and I have worked with you, Alan, in one chapter of your book to bring the work behind the scenes into the public arena. Well, I have deep respect, Paul, for your father. I knew your father and mother, and I was with your dad in Brazil back in the late 70s. We were invited guests of Dr. General Alfredo Ochoa, who was a great scientist with the Brazilian Air Force, author of many books, but also one who had contact with spiritual entities. And Alan, Hynek, and I had the opportunity to spend private time with him, and he put me sort of to the test as to what was the name of the entity speaking to him. That's Dr. General Ochoa. They said the name was El Muria, and this took him somewhat by surprise, but a happy surprise, that he recognized that there was a spiritual side to ufology. And so we became good friends. And Dr. Hynek also complimented Dr. Ochoa and said that in Brazil, he found people of great integrity in spiritual work, in healing, and dealing with the paraphysical phenomena of seeing these small spherical lights, which were at the home of Dr. Ochoa. In so many words, in Brazil, we were introduced back in the late 70s to a whole new area of science by people who were highly credentialed, who didn't put science on one side and spirituality on the other, but we were able to blend the two.
And Alan, if I could also say to Paul that actually several times we were at the house of J. Allen Hynek and his wife as guests, Mimi as guests, because my family also was from Chicago. So when we would go into town, we would come over and visit. But you said the other day that your dad was also understanding the fact that they were multidimensional. And I think from hearing the reports of what they experienced in Brazil, because they were also with this guy called Thomas Green Morton, and around him were these orbs. This is way before, this is in the 70s, before people even talked about orbs, but people would actually see them. And I think, and I know that actually your father saw them as well. So what he was confirming more than anything was the fact that he saw beings kind of from other dimensional realms. You know, you can look at the documents, which J. Allen Hynek did throughout all the reports that he read with Condon or everything else. But, you know, you're still just getting reports. When he went to Brazil, I think he had a real, you know, transformation of realizing these beings exist in other dimensions as well. And I think you asked him and he said, you know, will you say anything about this in the United States?
Well, I was surprised at a Congress in 1979. He said to the Brazilian audience that the coming of higher intelligence was like the second coming of Christ. And I practically dropped my shoes at that time, because I know he was a sterling scientist who would not say things that would be somewhat outrageous in American scientific circles, but in the context of what the Brazilians saw is the coming of higher intelligence in the spiritual sense of authentic contact. I understood his metaphor and what he meant at that particular moment.
But he had a different persona, if I can say, in Brazil than he did in the United States. We were also with him in 1979 at what really one of the first UFO conferences.
1977 in Acapulco. I was there with Dr. Hynek and other notables, and my wife, of course. We were interested really in the backstory of things behind the scene. And Alan would say, "How do you deal with the crazy?" And I said, "You know, you look at the source behind the voice. The real source is that we are working with multiple levels of cosmic intelligence, each having their own particular language. And we have to have a, shall we say, interdimensional vocabulary in mind, that this is not simply traditional Western science, and this is not traditional Orthodox religion. This is something that goes far beyond that.
And if I can just add that, we're optimistic somewhat about the release of some disclosure information connected with that COVID bill that Marco Rubio put in there in June. But at the same time, as Carolyn and Paul had said, and Mark's indicated, it's so complex that it's very difficult to really say everything about it. And, they are going back simply pretty much maybe to the 2004 Nimitz experience and some other things that happened on the East Coast.
But what you're saying, though, is that the complexity, part of the complexity is this whole interdimensional quality. And how does the government even start talking about that when they're not even acknowledging their dimensional quality, that they're here? So interdimensionality is something they have no language, they have no consciousness for, maybe a few of them, but that's really the disclosure here. And
I think,
go ahead, Tricia. Yeah.
Alan, I think you're so right. And Desiree too. I mean, all of you agree with everything you guys have said. Basically, in the version of reality that we've accepted in the Abrahamic religions, there's basically heaven, there's hell, and there's earth. And maybe we're alone in the universe, or maybe someone else is out on a planet out there somewhere. And fortunately, science, thank goodness, is bringing us to the, just statistically, was like 100 billion suns in our galaxy alone, and 100 billion galaxies. And so statistically, now finally science is like leading the charge to say there has to be life on other planets. And who's to say that they aren't millions of years ahead of us with technology? So coming here would be no big deal.
And dimensionally, not just on their planet, but what level of perception and vibration that we might not even see. Well,
exactly. And so it's like you say, there's no vocabulary. What can they say? They come from heaven, so suddenly it's a religious event. So we have to change our religious paradigm, and like you said, Desiree, marry science and religion back together, and philosophy, which is how the mystery schools, they had a triangle. If it didn't wash one way, you had to figure out what was wrong with your equation.
Well, I think we have to get rid of the religion part, because it's now a science. What Phil was saying is a science of spirit. I mean, Paul, you talk about the interdimensional. When I asked you the question, what you really thought was going on, you said, go ahead, tell them that you think it's interdimensional. But why do you say that? Because you're sort of a solid, concrete sort of guy.
That may be the first time anyone's ever said that about me.
Well, I don't know you that well, so okay.
Well, I want to say hello, JJ and Desiree, and thank you so much for talking about Brazil. And I'd love to talk with you more offline about that. And I have another natural affinity for people whose last name starts with H and ends with K as well. To me, I think for all of us here, I think like Jacques Vallée's line, I think we'd all be disappointed if the sum total of the UFO experience turned out to be only extraterrestrial. Right. There's just so much more meat on these interstellar bones. And the interdimensional one just seemed to me to be a thread of research that I could pick up and run with, that my father had shown like a little light on that many others have done. And it just seems to me to be a little bit more self-controlled, a little bit easier to prompt with the help of certain inducements. And it's just utterly fascinating to me. And to try to come at the UFO phenomena kind of an end round with another approach, it hasn't been done as much. And I think there's a chance to really push the needle forward in that area.
Right. And that's exactly what Carolyn Cory deals with, because she is a kind of active multidimensional being. But how would you talk about the interdimensionality, Carolyn? And like, how do you talk to people about this is really at the heart of the phenomena?
Exactly. I think that's the problem. There's human nature, and there's also the nature of reality, which everybody has a different version of. I mean, you have most of the planet that thinks we're, it's 3-dimensional and that's that. There's nothing else beyond it. And those other people that believe there's something else, there's consciousness. I mean, right there's a problem. And so when you're, so when you're trying to explain a phenomenon that is not explainable just, according to the Newtonian laws, using Newtonian laws, it just won't work. It doesn't even make sense, And so I think that is the problem about still waiting to have some sort of explanation that will make everybody happy, going back to how the disclosure should happen.
Yeah, but how do you talk about? Yeah. Go ahead.
So I mean, that's what I attempt to do in my work, obviously, for 20 years. I think to bring it back to the question of, it's all about the experience. If you're not experiencing, you are not. I mean, you are the experiencer of your reality, whatever that may be. And so when you bring it back to that, then if you only experience your physical body as the end of all, and that's it, then that's your reality. But if you experience more, that is also your reality. In other words, there's not one finite way of explaining reality. So I think if people can just go back to this basic principle of how do you define reality and accept it as your truth, then there's hope. Because you can't tell me I didn't experience something that I know I did. You know what I mean? You're not in my body. You're not in my brain. You're not, So I think that's the only hope that we could have, to at least acknowledge that if you're experiencing something beyond the physical realm, it follows. There's a lot of science, which is what I tried to do in my last film, except it's not the Newtonian science. It is a different type of science. It's the science of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's kind of like what we need to be explaining and talking about.
But Carolyn's film was superhuman. But how do you actually explain this idea of interdimensionality, of the realities of higher vibrations? How would you talk about it to someone who has no idea, or maybe you just can't? We just can't.
Can I just jump in here? Did you include Aaron Laszlo in your film? He's a quantum physicist, and he's come out with several books where he's able to talk about multidimensionality and quantum physics and explain it. And he's actually talking about the very laws that Thoth talked about.
Yes.
The 7 underlying hermetic laws of the universe, which is the universe is conscious, everything is vibration, the law of correspondence. I mean, I give a whole series of discourses on this, and it's the perennial wisdom. And once we understand that, we can understand how things are multidimensional, because it's vibration.
But you can't understand it unless you've had if you're brought up and conditioned and brainwashed to think, oh, this is all there is. Then you need an experience like Mark's or JJ's, or well, JJ already knew that, but or Carolyn, seeing these beings to start. Maybe you can. Maybe it's what Madame Blavatsky says: for those who know, no explanation is necessary. For those who don't, no explanation is possible. So I don't know. But Carolyn, just what would you say to someone to start to have them think about these dimensional realities?
I mean, we can talk about, in simplistic terms, the experiences that people can relate to, the relatable experiences like synchronicity or intuition, or how is it that that your son, something's wrong with your son when you didn't have a contact with him, he's on the other side of the planet, you think about them, they call you, you walk into a room, you knew exactly what was going to happen. I mean, things like that. So what do you call that? How is it possible that you're a scientist, you're somebody who only believes in the physical world? How do you know or sense something that you didn't have prior knowledge about?
It's the non-locality of the mind. Yeah,
exactly. So we can start with that, and because usually even the most kind of people on the fence or even non-believers will all, as soon as you talk about this, well, how do you explain, when you think of something, they call you blah blah blah. So when you at least open that door, they start to say, you know what, I did have an experience one time, and then they go into remembering and accepting that they also have had some sort of non-physical, non-explainable experience at some point.
Thank you. I'll go to Paul, and then I want to hear from Mark about some of the Tejbar teachings if he wants, and JJ. But go ahead, Paul.
So riffing not as an explanation, but a quick anecdote about Madam H.P. Blavatsky.
Okay.
My all-time favorite restaurant is the White Dog Cafe in Philadelphia, where I went for graduate school on Sansom Street. And that is a row house that used to be her house.
Oh.
And she contracted gangrene in her left leg, and the doctors told her they would have to amputate it. And she said, fancy that, I'll not have my leg enter the spirit world before me. And she credited the companionship of her white dog as having saved her leg.
Oh, wow.
So if you have a chance to go to Philadelphia, it's a great restaurant, one of the first sustainable practice restaurants, and just a great vibe.
Because she also lived in New York, actually right around the corner from where the Hurtaks are, where she wrote the Isis Unveiled. And she is really the godmother of modern
Theosophy,
spirituality.
yeah.
But Mark, did you want to say something, JJ?
I think Desiree and I would like just to say 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
we were going to
Okay,
say,
sure.
this is actually leading into your book. And your
Okay,
book is
then go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is one of the first books that isn't all about nuts and bolts, but still really practical and a good reader, because even our chapters, extraterrestrials and multidimensional non-local reality. And many people like Carolyn talk about these other dimensional realities. And yes, I mean, even if you take nuts and bolts and you see a UFO outside, chances are they're using some sort of fifth dimensional reality to come through the walls, because they're able to do that. They're not like walking in your door, they're actually coming through walls. So there's some sort of play here with these multidimensional realities. And I just want to say one other thing, that even though the science is so important, that as Trish mentioned, but also some of our work was to go back into the original ancient teachings from around the world. And we're going to do an ancient history panel tomorrow at around 2:40, I think,
California time.
here at this program. But
Portal to Ascension, yes.
yeah, but to say that all these ancient religions and cultures really did have an open space for other levels of intelligence. It's not closed. It's only been the religions that have kind of controlled it into this heaven, earth, and the underworld. But there's much, much more in the original teaching.
It was called Meta Science, and we worked at Stanford Research Institute with scholars and put this book together, Mind Dynamics in Space and Time. This is the real X-Files of how the American government and defense intelligence and beyond subsidized for more than 20 years the study of how remote viewing, remote sensing, remote healing could be used and understood on a global basis. So we have already government scientists on the highest of levels confirming the fact that we are having the abilities, if we wish, to work beyond the five senses.
Non-local awareness, but what's so important, everyone talks about global non-local awareness, but what Carolyn and Mark and ourselves are talking about is actually universal non-local awareness. And as we've said many times with you, Alan, that if a person even sees a UFO, chances are they're in touch with some level of intelligence from then on. They're entangled. That's all quantum physics terms. And even recently we had Travis Walton out here, and even after his main experience 45 years ago, he's had other, we'll say, close encounters of the first or second kind. So it's always, you're connected. I know Mark, if probably the next person to talk, is still connected. Even though he had this experience in 2012, there's that ongoing connection. Carolyn as well.
Well, I also want to say your chapter in the book on the multidimensionalities really gives us science using quantum physics, things like quantum tunneling, entanglement, the power of the mind and the subconscious will. And this is the key, I think, to understanding the multidimensionality, is the fact that the consciousness is not just this thing that our brain produces, but it's an aspect of reality itself. And we need to know how to control that to actually meet the ETs on their own ground. So Tricia, I'm going to send you a copy of my book, but
I want to read it. It sounds absolutely great. And I love that all you guys are in it because, you know, right up my alley for sure.
right.
I want to say that what Desiree was talking about with those experiments, and you too, Alan, is there's a book called The Field. It's probably 2020.
Lynn McTaggart, yeah, she's a good friend.
And it's
Yeah.
all the scientific experiments that they've been
Right.
doing, torturing one thing and another, trying to figure out remote viewing, remote healing, and again, Aaron Laszlo is definitely someone to take a look at. He's a quantum physicist,
No,
but he brings it together with spirituality and the divine. Really,
I'm going to be interviewing Irvin Laszlo for Contact in the Desert on June 25th.
Great.
But Carolyn, do you have to go? Is that
Yeah,
what you-
no, I was going to say that's also what I did in my movie Superhuman, which is all measurable effects of consciousness on the physical world. So it's for those who didn't watch Superhuman, the invisible made.
I want to see it.
Yeah,
Where is
you
it?
should
Where
see
is
It's
it?
a great movie.
Amazon Prime, or go to superhumanfilm.com. It's all experiments demonstrating that
Superhuman. Maybe someone could put it in the chat.
Yeah,
I know.
is it on your website, Carolyn?
you can go to superhumanfilm.com, but it's also on Amazon Prime, Superhuman, the invisible made visible. This is all demonstrating the actual physical effect of consciousness on the physical world. And at the end of the day, we're basically demonstrating through a bunch of experiments in laboratory and otherwise, that consciousness is fundamental. It's almost like you can think of it as the substance before anything, if there's a before and after, but let's pretend. So if it is the substance that is the fundamental substance before anything, that it's from consciousness that everything else emerges. The physical world is going to emerge, intelligent life is going to emerge, even the material world is going to emerge from this original fundamental substance. And so now that it's all emerged and it's all interconnected, when we are seeing a UFO, we have to remember that at the base of our experience is this fundamental substance. So there's no separation, even though it looks like here I am as an individual unit of consciousness observing this object, but we both have a common denominator at the base of our existence. And because of that, we are interconnected. And so it is that interconnection of all of aspects of life that makes it experiential, meaning that we have a singular and individual experience of all of life, even though it's all connected.
You see, that's why the Pentagon is scrambling, because they don't have the language, they don't have the paradigm of understanding what you just said. They're thinking as Newtonian physics.
And them. There's
and that's why if I see a UFO, I can talk to it, I can find out what it is, because at the base we are connected to the same fabric. I mean, so sometimes when I see a UFO, one time there's all these lights bouncing right above my house. So I can connect to it and talk to it, and I can find out if this is human, non-human, is this a drone? Or is this just an effect of an illusion or what have you? And then, so if I communicate, it responds back to me. This one time, I said I could see and sense and connect, and I could tell that there is an intelligent life inside this vehicle. So I said, if you are what I think you are, then follow me. And so I started walking like half a mile, in one direction. And these lights are like following it. And we were having a conversation. And so then I said, okay, that was awesome. Now I'm walking, the opposite direction for half a mile. And here they are, they're following me. So what I'm saying is, when you take that as the base of your existence, that everything is interconnected, then you can see and understand everything from that perspective and recognize and discern what it is that you're observing.
Right.
Yes.
This is what John Mack was saying at the end of his life in his last book, Passport to the Cosmos, about the indigenous awareness of this link of consciousness. And John also has an essay in this book, Tricia, that's been unpublished. So I love this conversation. It's all coming together. But let me just get to Mark for a second, because when he had like his contact awakening, you were actually taught the levels of dimensional reality. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So over this 13-day experience in which I'm communing with Tejbar, this is the word he gave me, which of course we all know from Whitley Strieber's famous book, Communion. He described it as the union of three things: the physical body, my physical body, and my soul, which he called the astral body. This is the thing that we can project, and we call this astral projection. That's developing in our body and through the modus operandi of reincarnation. And then the third thing was him, the celestial body is what he originally called it. And so that's what he described it when we were together. And over this 13-day period, I did most of the asking. I did an interview, an in-depth interview of this being.
I just want to say, if you didn't hear it, Tejbar actually merged into Mark's body.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So imagine a light body here. Let me just show everyone what he appeared as at the end of my bed. This is the cover to my book that I'm going to be publishing soon. And this is literally what I saw standing at the end of my bed in Borrego Springs, California, on the very early morning of November 16th, 2012. And as he stood there at the end of my bed, I assumed that this was an extraterrestrial that was clearly not physical. It occurred to me that maybe he was either an energy being or possibly a hologram appearing at the end of my bed. And so I greeted it, and then it slowly began walking towards me on my left side and began reaching out and then pushing into my body with its index finger, and then the rest of it followed, and I felt this merging, which was an intense type of static electricity sensation. And it got so intense as his shoulder began merging with the left side of my body that I almost jumped up. My fight or flight response kicked in, and it took every bit of willpower to keep still and to allow him to do this. And, I often get the question like, what, weren't you scared? And I wasn't scared. There was a benevolence to this being. So I wasn't scared, and there was already the context of being at this event for 5 days and having seen this ship appear above our group just a couple hours before this took place in my room. So, I just trusted it, but still it was freaky, and it took a lot of willpower to stay still. And this began this 13-day experience, and I began asking him questions, and that ultimately led to the development of, or the creation of, this chart, which I will be talking a lot more about in the coming months. And this is called the Universal Consciousness Development Chart. And in this chart, it includes 3 categories of dimensions of consciousness, or dimensions of awareness. And in the yellow area are the 15 dimensions that he outlined for me. In the green column, these are the dimensions of freedom that he described, of which in the physical realm, we experience 3, but there are 6 more dimensions of freedom, we'll say, in the higher dimensions or higher realms. And then there were 2 dimensions of time that he described. And the model of this so in this model, you have 3 realms of creation, and they're labeled on the left side. You have the physical realm at the bottom, the densest of the 3. You have the astral and the celestial. And each one of these rows or realms of creation incorporate 5 dimensions of consciousness. And in the physical realm, these 5 dimensions of consciousness or awareness are the 5 physical senses, okay? So you have to be a physical being to be able to smell or to see with eyes, the light spectrum, the visible light spectrum. This is a consequence of being physical. But there are also dimensions of consciousness that he explained that exist at the astral level. And these include things like telepathy, ESP, astral projection, hive mind, or social memory complexes is a dimension of consciousness at this level. So there are 5 additional dimensions of consciousness at this level, and then there's 5 more at the celestial level. In the celestial level, he called it the level of the Godhead. And as we evolve through these 3 realms, starting with the physical, we kind of change, our consciousness evolves, our awareness evolves. And so there's a purpose to this process that he described. And, you know, I don't want to take up too much more time because I could spend hours talking about this. All I want to point out is in the chart at the top, you have the superstring theories. These are the 8 string theories that make up the body of superstring theories, which is a theory from astrophysics that attempts to explain the nature of reality, how we get to all the elementary particles that we find that make up matter and energy. And these 8 string theories predict 2 things. Number 1, that when you continue to divide matter into its constituent parts, you get to a point where you can no longer divide it. And what you end up with is a string, a one-dimensional string that has imbued in it a frequency and a amplitude or a quantity of energy. And that determines what that quanta of energy will manifest into in what we call the standard elementary particle, the elementary particle table in the standard model of elementary particles.
Well, thanks, Mark. No, this is this is what I mean. Like, what does interdimensionality mean? This is exactly what I mean. Wait, I'm going to get to you for a second. I think Paul.
What's the book, Mark? We can't wait for it to come out. Sounds great.
Thank you, Tricia. I'm very excited to bring this to the world. I've been working on this, you know, and I've got a great way to present it that, you know, normal people, you know, can wrap their heads around. It's very exciting.
I hope Alan and Neil will send your phone number and your email and Carolyn's and share.
I just want to get to Paul because I think you said you had to leave at this time, Paul.
I have to leave. Yeah.
Oh, and Carolyn.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick. Also, I love what Mark just presented, but also I think for me the experience of multidimensionality is slightly different. Just to put it out there, that once right now we have our brain, we use our brain in a linear fashion, you know, and kind of, you know, the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, it's like all separate as we operate through this physical world. But I think once we, because I've had all these experiences and I taught it to hundreds of people, once you are coming in contact with other realities, you are merged with the other dimension in a different way. And I feel like that you switch from linear brain functioning to a full brain capacity functioning, and you tap into all dimensions at the same time. So it's not so linear. It's not so, you know, from here to there is 6 dimension, then it's 15 dimension. It's good as an explanation because people can, you know, kind of get a sense. But what I'm saying is there's a way, you know, to go through the pineal gland and the caudate, anyway, not without getting technical, where the brain switches automatically to all dimensions all at once.
Let's do a multi-dimensional panel with specifically about that with Mark and you and 2 other people. And wait, Paul
All
has,
right, I gotta
thank you,
go.
Carolyn, superhuman, Carolyn Cory. She also has a chapter in Making Contact. So thank you for everything, Carolyn. I'll be in touch.
All right,
And
see you later. Thanks so much.
thank you. And Paul, you have to leave now too. Do you have any, I just wanted to ask you one question I didn't ask you the
Sure.
other day. When your father finally acknowledged the existence, he was a mainstream astronomer from, I guess, Northwestern University in Chicago, and he was hired by Project Blue Book to debunk it all. When he finally realized, like, guess what, there was something there, did that change him fundamentally and other levels of his life?
That's a really good question. You mentioned Madam H.P. Blavatsky. He liked her and Rudolf Steiner, and he had Rosicrucian leanings. So he had a sort of core of spirituality to him, even though he was a hard-boiled nuts and bolts astrophysicist. So his basic spiritual, intellectual foundation had already been set. So aliens from wherever really fit into his worldview. He was trained he was told by the Air Force, hey, like we talked about yesterday, it's the Society for the Explanation of the Uninvestigated, right? So Project Blue Book's goal and tactics were very different from his personal beliefs. Now, as a scientist, he had to make sure that he felt that there was enough accumulated evidence for him to accept that as a bona fide phenomena, not so much believe, but accept the data. And because he was also, there were three groups he had to be conscious of. One was the military, one was mainstream science, and the other is UFO, let's say, believers. Three very, very different groups. I think he felt he had to keep each one of them mildly displeased, and then he's doing a good balancing act. And so, the idea of the straw that broke the camel's back, or the more and more evidence. And I keep finding out more and more interesting chapters, like JJ and Desiree mentioned, about Brazil that I don't know about. So I don't have the complete view myself. But the idea of accepting the UFO phenomena and then ruminating and cogitating on where they come from fit into his worldview. And it was really more the public persona that had to be brought up to speed to go along with that.
But I love that whole TV series they're doing on your dad.
Yes,
that series,
Project Blue Book. Yes,
great.
But I just want to ask you. I know you have to go, but
That's okay.
As a person, did it come down? Well, I'm sure he loved being in Close Encounters, right? That was a great highlight for him. That in the movie, that little.
It was fun. It was a relief because, especially back in the 70s, when Hollywood comes knocking on your door and wants to talk about UFOs, that can go south really quickly. And, he had a scientific reputation to maintain, and, getting involved with UFOs certainly didn't help his tenure track in the beginning, right? So
did he feel validated by that movie?
I don't think he felt, I think he felt relieved that it portrayed UFOs in both a sympathetic and professional manner. And it indeed took lots of snippets from real reports for that kind of verisimilitude. So he felt that it was a good fictionalized portrayal of aspects that many people have reported, and it came across in a very sympathetic way.
And also, because there's a lot of this discussion tonight has been about multidimensionality, you told me the other day that was part of his core belief about the phenomena. Is that true?
Yeah, Jacques Vallée, my father, I'm sure many others here, felt that, well, for, let's say, astrophysical constraint reasons, the extraterrestrial hypothesis doesn't seem to check all the boxes. And interdimensional just seems to encompass some of the more deeper or esoteric parts of the phenomena that a spaceship coming from Zeta Reticuli doesn't seem to really wrap up. Right. And it's, especially with this community of people, of experiencers and people that have had these experiences where the most important aspect is not a visual sighting of a craft. Interdimensional just seems so much more resonant to me and many other people listening right now, I think.
And personal, yes. Thank you. Hang out as long as you want. I just want to go to JJ and say, that's been
I want to say that your dad was very close to Pedro Fariz, who was the Walter Cronkite of Mexico, and brought this subject really into the mainstream. So your father had many hats behind the scenes. He was deeply consistent with his inner spirituality from the school of Steiner, and I also respect that.
Hello?
I think he got frozen.
Uh-oh, he got frozen. But anyway, yeah, no, JJ has a lot of great memories about working with your father.
He knew that there had to be a new language.
I have loved this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tricia, for joining us. It's always great to see you. You're looking great.
And I've loved every one of this. Please send their contact information. I think we'd all love it.
All right.
And I want to read your book.
Okay, I'm going to send it to you a PDF. Okay.
Much love, guys. Bye, JJ.
Thanks,
Bye,
Tricia.
JJ.
So
Bye.
wait, JJ,
Hi, Tricia.
we lost the end of your
Yeah,
talk
and
there.
I plugged in now into Ethernet.
I just wanted to say before Paul goes that there is a deep metaphysical side to Dr. J. Allen Hynek that's very important, and I think as a model for future scientists and engineers, the highlights of his life should also include his inner spiritual quest and recognition of multidimensional science. We would call that future science, science guided by consciousness.
And I want to remind people that the Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie, many people didn't understand why Richard Dreyfuss was building that mountain in his living room and just had the insight to go to that place along with other people. But it's that non-local awareness, that entanglement that was part of that. And so it was put in. I know that your father probably was behind that, instigating, that phenomena, but it happens all the time. And this is really partly of what Alan's new book is about, that consciousness linkage that we all ultimately have with other levels of intelligence.
I also want to say, just qualifying the experience in the terms that he did, Close Encounters of the First Kind, the second kind, the third kind, gave legitimacy to the experiencers and sort of, well, it brought it into public awareness. Now everyone, because of the movie, but everyone somehow has more of a handle on levels of possibility and interaction because of your father. And that's really a gift to this evolving culture that suddenly now, after the 60s, where he was 70s, like 50 years later, it's coming into common knowledge what this is all about. So what do you have to say about his languaging and his categorization of a phenomenon that wasn't even tangible? I never even heard of Close Encounters of the Third Kind before the movie came out, but what was behind that? And did he feel like that legitimized the experience a little more? Paul?
Well, he realized he wasn't studying UFOs, he was studying UFO reports. Right. And so he had to come up with a way, if he wanted other scientists to take it seriously, he thought it was essential to have a way to, as scientists do, to categorize things. They always put things in buckets, and that makes other scientists more comfortable. And it allowed kind of a shorthand internationally for people to communicate using the same vocabulary. And it's, I think he'd be surprised that maybe it's survived and now it's been built on, but I think he'd be gratified to see that. I don't know if he would think that anything from Hollywood would do anything to legitimize a phenomenon. It moved the needle, though, on the acceptance of the public discourse, which I think he thought was a valuable thing, that more people felt comfortable talking about it because it portrayed, mashed potato mountain building experiencers in a very positive manner. Now, I'll tell you, my father had little patience for us after the movie playing with mashed potatoes at home.
Is that what happened? Well, can you just also say where'd that come from, that scene? What was it in his work that developed into that obsession? What did he hear?
I don't know exactly, but to JJ's point, or Desiree, he talked with Steven Spielberg quite a lot and conveyed to him this aspect of the non-local and communication, apparently outside of time as well. And I don't know where the specifics from the mashed potatoes came, but that kind of aspect, Richard Dreyfuss's character this kind of schlubby guy who's like a utility repairman in Muncie, Indiana, that's about as relatable as you get. And he has no interest, no desire for UFOs. And he's the kind of guy that takes you along on this journey. I think for a lot of people, my father was kind of like that because he's a fairly sympathetic guy. He's a scientist who doesn't really have a horse in the race, so to speak. And if this guy who has a pretty good academic and astronomical pedigree is now saying, hey, we should all take a look at the stars, there's something happening, it helps other people to come in who may have otherwise thought, oh, it's still flying saucers and ray guns.
Well, you know, that's exactly who Luis Elizondo was. He was a military guy on the front lines. Suddenly he's looking at these reports that he wasn't anywhere familiar with, but he goes, oh my God, if this is true, what does that mean for national security? What does this mean for the truth? I mean, he really is behind some of this awakening. So, I mean, I also just want to acknowledge your father as really spearheading, like I said in the beginning, a movement that is now blossoming. He planted the seeds and now something is flowering. And, you know, just about the mashed potatoes thing, when I first heard about it, I had an experience. I became obsessed. I didn't make mashed potato mountains, but it's like I did, and maybe Mark did too. And JJ has always been involved, Desiree too. But I wanted to know everything there was about the phenomena. I went to every conference, got every book, because something had happened to me that, like Grant Cameron says, it sucks you down the rabbit hole until. And we're still down the rabbit hole. That's why
not the rabbit hole, the wormhole.
We're somewhere in deep space. I know that, but it's still kind of, maybe the whole world is coming to this realization, like your father, me, Mark, that there's something real happening, and we're all going to be sucked into that wormhole. Where, I mean, even on The View, those women we're talking about the 188 days that are coming up in Congress.
I'll give you one anecdote that I heard that I experienced last year, which really indicated to me that it's talking about UFOs has really sort of passed the point of no return. I was listening to ESPN sports radio in the background. They're talking about some football game. And one of the jocks on the show said to the other one, hey, because of COVID, whoever wins the Super Bowl this year, if there is one, well, they need an asterisk by their name. So it's a really deep in the woods, football question. And the other guy says, look, the only thing you need to know about 2020 is that the Pentagon has said that UFOs are real.
Right.
It was just so random, so out of place, and so just naturally came out of the guy. It's almost like he's channeling in a football conversation UFO disclosure.
Right. Thank you for that story. That makes it legitimate that they're talking about it on a football game.
Right.
Know? So let me thanks. Are you going to hang out for a while?
Yeah, I've got to go now.
Well, wait, I'm just going to say you're going to be at Contact in the Desert, right?
Virtually, yes.
Right. Everyone's going to be at Contact in the Desert. I just want to show.
Usual suspects, right.
Caroline's going to be there. I'm going to be there. JJ and Desiree are going to be there. This is Contact in the Desert. It is coming up virtual. Go to contactinthedesert.com to find out more. There's David Childress, and there's like over 60 speakers. It's probably live. It's one of my favorite things. Online, it's going to be an incredible event. So come join it. Get a ticket online. There's pictures of me and JJ right down there at the bottom. So Paul Hynek's going to be there. What are you giving your talk about at the conference, Paul?
No idea.
All right. We'll help you along. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. And
thanks. I'm going to also send you a PDF of my book. I'd like to get your feedback.
Okay. And thank you so much, JJ and Desiree. And I'd love to talk with you more. Thank you so much.
Do that, Paul.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Bye. Thank you, Neil. Bye, Alan. Bye, Mark.
Thanks, Paul. Just to wrap up, JJ and Mark and Desiree. So here we're coming down to the wire. Neil, do we have to get off at any certain time?
No, we're good.
Okay, so maybe just another 15 minutes to wrap it all up and put in a box. So JJ, Desiree, we've been talking about this for 2 months, right? It's coming down to the wire.
This is the situation. This is the situation. This program is a great program. but there's more to it than talking heads.
Mhm.
And in order to get into interdimensionality, you have to have what I consider the ability to morph or to bring out the special effects that have been advanced in the movie industry to give people a sense of immersion. What I mean by that is a sense of floating in inner space with the actual contact experience. Words are not sufficient, no matter how long we talk, how many hours of Tricia McCannon, how many hours of somebody else, that doesn't cut it. You have to have an inner awakening experience that I feel has to be orchestrated through what we have already discussed: vibrations, sacred geometry, higher language levels, and certainly thought forms or scenarios that show complex interdimensionality.
So just to say a little bit more of Dr. Hurtak's experience, we consider an ultra-terrestrial level of intelligence where there is an energy similar to Mark's, but he claims is celestial, which we say is extra celestial. But anyway, levels of intelligence that literally appear and that take you, in this case, Dr. Hurtak, to these higher levels of awareness. But I think, as Mark has said, and I will hopefully in a moment as well, that all of them who are not being abducted, and I think Carol and Cory falls into the experiencer as well, are asked, given the choice, but they have to first be open. And we were saying this on the Ascension panel. It's opening your higher consciousness to the greater reality that these other levels exist. Mark had it through a C5 or C4 experience where he actually saw something, then he knew it. Dr. Hurtak had it through more of a deeper meditation experience. I've also seen things just growing up in Florida in the Bermuda Triangle area. But the idea is, once that happens and you are asked if you're ready, then you're open to other realms of intelligence. And I want to encourage everyone to start opening their minds to the greater levels of intelligence, not necessarily the nuts and bolts, or even the reptilians or some of the insectoids, anything like that.
But feel the sacredness.
Well,
Go higher.
that is
Look
what I
beyond
wanted to bring.
and that's them.
I wanted to bring that out in the book, that it's not about ETs, it's about us evolving to the place where we can meet the rest of the cosmos. Because
You did great.
thank you.
It's great.
There's intelligence out there waiting for us to grow up and meet them on a level playing field. That's Mark's experience, and fast tracking through Tejbar. I mean, and of course, JJ and Desiree, but Mark, just any concluding words about that level of consciousness that you were really tutored in with this interdimensional being, and how you're such a different person that you look even more different now than we saw you a couple of weeks ago. So
I love you, Mark.
Oh, I love you, JJ and Desiree and Alan. You're such dear friends and such wonderful people, inspirational and such great mentors for us. Alan, have only really one thing to say, and that is that this is all good news, that there's really nothing to fear. Nothing to fear but fear itself. I've heard that somewhere before.
Yes.
And so I think, the, work that we all have to do is to figure out how we approach this experientially. How can we engage with the ETs in a way that we can, for ourselves, confirm that they're real? Because no matter what somebody says, until you have your own experience, you'll always have that little bit of doubt or skepticism. And so, people need to just simply invite. And the best way to do that is through meditative practices, filling your heart full of gratitude and joy, because this is a joyful thing. This is, learning and then meeting these beings that are so technologically and spiritually advanced than us, and they're rooting for us. They are just at the edge of their seats, like, are they going to make it? Are they going to make it? And they want to cheer us on, but they can't reach down and help us solve our own problems. We got to grow up and take responsibilities for ourselves and for our planet, and all that can be done if we just put that intention and do it from a place of love. And I see a bright future for us, a really wonderful, beautiful future.
Well, we're going to be talking about this on the 29th. Can you show the flyer for the 29th? Because that's going to be
I sure can. I'll put it up there one more time.
We have Bridget Nielsen on, who we discovered here in Sedona, who's a great speaker to the Star Seeds, and Danny Sheehan.
See that?
Whitley Strieber. We're going at some point we're going to have the JJ and Desiree Hurtak back. Danny Sheehan, who's at the heart of the disclosure. I mean, he is really a central figure right now in the disclosure movement. Whitley Strieber, who's probably the longest term contactee, abductee I know of. Zinka Caro, who's a brilliant. What does Zinka do, actually? How would you describe it?
Well, she's a technologist and, just a real futurist. And she's got her own business at zinkacaro.com, I believe is her website. And she's right now working on a new platform called Exo Metaverse. And every other Friday, she features an interview with someone, someone who you rarely hear about, or maybe you do hear about. And her interviews with people are amazing. And she's got all sorts of projects that she's bringing into the Exo Metaverse universe. And, people sharing their first contact stories. If you go to her website, exometaverse. I think it's .com, it might be .org. But if you go there, she's got a whole gallery of YouTube videos of people sharing their first contact experience. And it's amazing the stories people share there. They're so beautiful. They're so positive. And so, so she's great.
We have John Yost, who's a first contact, right? Person there too.
Oh yeah, he's a real interesting story. He's actually making a movie trilogy called First Contact, or no, Making Contact. So,
all right. Well,
he's got the same title as your book.
Well, it seems like everyone does. So buy the book. But anyway,
may I just add that just to let everybody know on YouTube that we actually Saturday Night Alive broadcast to our YouTube every single week, as well as Alan Steinfeld's YouTube. So if you're on our YouTube now and you subscribed and you're already getting notifications, you'll get an update when this goes live. And I'm going to be the interview on May 28th, which is the day before this, on Exo Metaverse. So you can check that out too.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, don't miss it. Zinka is great, and Neil will be on there. It'll be great.
You can also register right at globalpeacetribe.com if you want to be updated. So, Mark, I'm going to be there. We're going to be talking really about this leading edge, about crossing this threshold into the unknown, and how, like my title, my book said, preparing for these new realities, which brings me back to the Hurtaks, because they are real pioneers in this field, because they've integrated consciousness, spirituality, and this connection to these higher realms. So talk a little bit about UTs and celestials and ultra terrestrials.
Let me just start though, Alan, to give another plug for the Saturday Night Alive, because I think with Danny Sheehan there, who's supporting Elizondo, I mean, this is really the next threshold. If we'll say the Senate Intelligence Committee by June 24th, which is supposedly the deadline, really comes out with anything, more, it'll be an encouragement again for the whole world to know more. So we're optimistic. We don't think it's going to be like going back to Roswell and going back to this and that and the other and saying
no more weather balloons, you're saying.
Right. But it's going to be hopefully even a few steps further. That's what it seems like the government's been doing. It started with Elizondo, then it went during the middle of COVID. We talked about that right on our program, that in April, in the middle of COVID, the Pentagon goes, yeah, that film footage is accurate, and then, moving on to the next thing. So it's like a step by step by step. So we're optimistic because people really have to start taking this seriously because the planet is going through changes. This is what Dr. Hurtak was told in his experience.
Of being taken off the planet.
Yeah, but that they are trying to feed us information. They do it by non-local awareness of science so we can graduate into a greater level of knowledge to meet them closer than we were, we'll say, 100 years ago or 50 years ago. So they're giving us this information to graduate so that we can be closer. And it's so important that, the government starts jumping on the bandwagon and helping us to make those next quantum leaps.
Well, that's the thing. It's a kind of graduation program from this little isolated human drama that we've been living out, which, like as Stanton Friedman says, the favorite pastime of mankind, I would say mankind, has been tribal warfare. So we need a new story. And all this discussion about interdimensionality, waking up consciousness, all the chapters in this book are about a new story of humanity being part of the cosmos, being part of life, being, as Caroline said, we descend from consciousness. We're not evolving towards, well, we are evolving towards a more conscious, but we come from this greater consciousness. JJ, talk about what you brought through in the Keys of Enoch.
Keys of Enoch, as some of you may or may not know, as a result of my contact experience in 73, 64 areas of science, including 24 dimensions plus 2 imaginary time and real time. But essentially the models suggest that we are being prepared for a great leap forward, a leap of faith all across the board, from medicine, sociology to other areas of investigation. So the drama is unfolding towards recognizing that we are multidimensional human beings waking up in a vast and awesome universe. And Stanford Research Institute scientists that we work with have proven that we are in the psychic and psychological categories, local as well as non-local in our consciousness power. So putting us all together, we are basically in this drama of synergy, and we must have the humility, we must have the respect of the divine within us to reach out and bring brothers and sisters together through the tribe of peace.
Right, and additional books that he's come out with, which is For One Key 404, talks about how our reality of a third/fourth dimensional reality is really based on what Elizabeth Rauscher also talked about, which is eighth space or eighth dimensional reality, and then even beyond that. And basically it is consciousness first and foremost, and then from the consciousness, it gets materialized into other levels until it gets concretized into this reality. And so now it's up to us to bring that consciousness here to this reality.
So we've covered all basic bases, both in terms of the movements of thought, the intellectual history. We've looked at the paraphysics with high levels of science investigations. We've had also opportunities to work with some of the astronauts who have had their own experiences in outer space, recognizing through the overview effect that we're all connected. And this is so exciting to be alive at a time when the divine and the human meet together in partnership. We have this great opportunity to bring a message of love and harmony to humanity if we see the big picture, that we are not alone in the universe, but rather co-participants in a divine family.
And we consider from the divine to the human and all the other levels in between. So there's myriads of other realms.
Right. This is the simplest plane. If you think this is all there is, you're about to be surprised. This is really the simplest. So I just wanted to play, maybe, Neil, how are we doing on time? Can I play the promo that was put together for the 29th that Mark was put in the text? So
make sure you select computer audio.
Yeah. So I just also want to say that it's been really a great discussion. I think we've gone further in this discussion than we have in many others. And if you want to continue the whole UFO theme, well, you could read my book, Making Contact, or you could come to this great program put together by Scott Katamas and Deborah Giusti with Mark and I. And this is the promo that takes a lot of the current situation around the phenomena into account. So here we go. Is it louder?
We have tackled many strange stories on 60 Minutes, but perhaps none like this. It's the story of the U.S. government's grudging acknowledgement of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, more commonly known as UFOs. After decades of public denial, the Pentagon now admits there's something out there, and the U.S. Senate wants to know what it is. The Intelligence Committee has ordered the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense to deliver a report on the mysterious sightings by next month.
The story will continue in a moment.
What an extraordinary time this is. We are living in a time in human history when more of us, our beautiful great global peace tribe, are having contact and connection with angels, aliens, galactic family, archetypes. It's happening. And it's also happening in the external world. Government disclosure is taking place. And so as a result, of course, Saturday Night Alive is doing a really special program on May 29th, all about making contact with our galactic family and each other. And of course, our co-host, our executive producer for the show is Mark Sims, who brought you the Harmonic Convergence 2020. And we will conclude this amazing evening with Mark Sims leading a CE6. That's a close encounter of the sixth kind for all of us to participate in. Also, our good friend Alan Steinfeld from New Realities Television. We've got Whitley Strieber joining us live, and he wrote the book Communion and has been involved in this for so long. And Danny Sheehan, who probably knows as much as anybody about what's going on with government disclosure. Our other guests include Jimmy Blanchett, Bridget Nielsen, Sean Yost, the delightful Zen Kakaro, Bruce Sugar, who produced some of Mark's wonderful videos that you've seen. And we've got, as our musical support, Fanny Sturchild and Brigari Sendar. So join us on Saturday night, May 29th, for a very special edition of Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe.
With your hosts, Scott Katamas and Deborah Giusti. Along with author Alan Steinfeld, who is celebrating May 4th with the release of his new book, Making Contact, The New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. And the executive producer of Making Contact Day, Mark Sims. Join us as we make history live on Zoom.
Oh, hello. Oh, was that it? Great, great, great. Actually, I wonder if I should show my little promo. You think, Desiree?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I mean, there's still some people here. Wait, just Neil, while I get that set up, thank you everyone for being here. You hang out for a little bit. What can we expect for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to show that in a minute. How long do you need to show your
no,
video?
Just 1 minute. I just need to find it on my YouTube channel. And this was actually a video for the event that we did with Mark and everyone in Sedona. Let me just
I'll say, Neil, we're going to be on with you and Alan tomorrow, or at least with Alan on a history, ancient history.
Yep. I'll be on that too. And I'll just pull up the schedule right now, I guess, while Alan's looking for that.
Oh, no, I think I got it.
I got it.
Okay,
right,
so
let's do it.
This is a little promo for an event that me and the Hurtaks and Mark put together in Sedona, and for the book in general. So let's see if I just go to this. I think this is it. Share and here. This is something I put together with I love editing. So here it goes. Are we hearing that? No, wait, sorry.
From deep, deep in outer space to planet Earth to the red rocks of Sidonia comes a time, an event, a place, a message of making contact.
There is no better time for a book like Making Contact. I'm George Norrie, host of the national radio show Coast to Coast AM. Alan Steinfeld has put together a well-conceived collection of writings that covers it all. This is a book most needed at this time because Making Contact presents the opportunity for us to prepare to meet advanced civilizations. Someday, somehow in the future, the conflicts that have plagued our species for eons will come to an end. And by making contact, we will take our rightful place among the stars.
We are very honored to welcome you to Unity of Sedona. My name is Dosie. I just want to say...
Okay, and that takes us into the whole event that we just did. And that's my little creative input. Did you like?
It's posted on YouTube.
Oh yeah, that's on YouTube, and actually that's part one of a 4-hour series that we did on May 2nd with Mark and Bridget and JJ, and Travis Walton gave a great talk that day. So thank you, Neil, for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone watching. I think this has been a really Mark. We're going to see you coming out next week.
I'll be there next week, and then I'm on the show tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So Neil will probably share the schedule for tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Neil. I am so honored to be a part of your program.
Thank you, brother.
What are you talking about tomorrow, Mark? What's your theme?
Neil, is there a theme, or am I?
I was thinking, well, okay, there is no real theme, but maybe if you want to tell your full story about, like, I know it's a big story, but you have a good amount of time. Maybe you want to do that. But if there's something that you feel that there's some teachings that you want to, share as well, it's kind of completely up to you, brother. Whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll do that.
And me and JJ and Desiree and Neil and this guy Manu. What's Manu's last name? He's going to be on the. He reads hieroglyphics. He wrote a book called Under the Sphinx. We're going to talk about ancient civilizations tomorrow at the end of Portal to Ascension, day 4. So it's going to be another great conversation. Neil, thanks for everything. All the energy you put out for, it takes a lot of focus to pull 4 days together and all these speakers and panels and keep it all like juggling in the air. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you so much. Such profound information. I just appreciate everything that you do. And I'm just happy to know you guys, really, to be honest. I'm just really blessed to know you guys. And thank you for being good friends.
Yeah, they are good people to know. So thank you, JJ and Desiree. I'll talk to you soon. And okay, you're going to then do what, Neil? Let's go over the schedule?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do now, everybody, is we're going to go over the schedule first. We're going to breathe together and set an intention. I'll do some poetry after that. And then to close out today, I'm going to play a presentation that I did earlier today because I was on another show. And I'm just going to play that. And you can stick around or you can leave. But it'll be the closing presentation as the day kind of,
But what is the presentation about that you're going to show?
It's about, it's Milky Way dynamics, right? But it's about tools of empowerment, basically evidence, science-based evidence of the, the Milky Way and cycles of time and incarnation. But then the other half of it is about different tools that we can use that can activate not only our DNA, but our consciousness and help us be at the frequency level where we can perceive these other realities that exist. Right.
Right. So I love that. Thanks, Neil. Thank you.
For sure. And I just want to say this for everybody. When it comes to, this event here, look at us in the world. It seems like we're so split. And over let's just say the last 10 years, the division seems to be more rampant than ever. And divide and conquer from, those who claim to be in control is definitely a reality. But the fact that we're so we're so split and divided is kind of why I do these events, is because this place is a place of unity. You know, it's really a place where we check our beliefs to the side. We do not marginalize people here. And even if you have beliefs that conflict or do not go in alignment with someone else, all we're doing is sharing information. So this platform, I just want to like second it, third it, fourth it, just over and over and over again, is that this is a non-biased platform for awareness and sharing information. But at the same time, it's unity based. Right? It doesn't matter what you believe politically, or who you are, or what you've had, what your journey is. Like what your journey is, of course, that matters to us, right? But it in this right here, everybody's journey is valid. Everybody's experience is valid. Whatever you have come to understand from your experiences, from your past lives, from your extraterrestrial lives, from your activation in life, from your upbringing, whatever it is, it's accepted. And we are here to figure out how we can move forward together, even though we have differences. But ultimately, on top of all of that, it's about figuring out and realizing that we have more in common than we have that's different. And, you know, Carolyn Cory hit the nail on the head when she said that she can communicate with these UFOs and ETs, because on the fabric of the universe level, on the subatomic level, I love what she said. Quantum physics really is the science of consciousness. So well, the subatomic world is understanding the science of consciousness. So now that we can connect with each other on that fundamental level, that we're all made out of the same energy, we're all experiencing ourselves, we're all made out of the same light, that is the foundation that we can use and utilize to move forward in this world and create a world that is for the betterment of everybody, not just a select few, not just a group of people that believe in one way, you know. There may be some difficulties in life. Maybe some people won't have an awakening in life, but that's okay too. Because what is it? Life experience, existence is about experiencing. We're here to experience this, right? This darkness might be something we want to shift and change so we can be in the light, but this darkness has given us the contrast so we can see the beauty of the light, right? And I'll say it over and over again. The most unconditional thing that the light ever did was allow the darkness to exist within it. The most unconditional thing that the light ever did was allow the darkness to exist within it. The darkness is there. It can manifest in many forms. Some that just give you a dark night of the soul to realize your own challenges and traumas in life to shift it. Some can be actually from people and individuals that are projecting this darkness onto us. But ultimately, when we realize and we understand and we accept, that we have more in common with each other and that we all can join forces in order to create a beautiful existence on planet Earth and go out into the cosmos and be the ones teaching other planets on how we transcended amnesia so that we can get to a level of consciousness that we had full remembrance of who we are. That is where we're on the journey towards. It might happen in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It might happen in 5 years, 10 years, 200 years, 1,000 years. But that's the journey that we're on. So I just want to say that I love everybody here. And I'm so grateful just to be able to not only present this information to you, but to be like creating a community so that we can share it with each other. All right. So now, everybody, I'm going to share the schedule for tomorrow. Portal to Ascension, day 3 is almost over. Day 1 and day 2 is on the YouTube channel right now. If you want to continue watching that after today, please go ahead and do that. Day 4 will be tomorrow. And on day 4, this is what you can expect here. All right. So tomorrow, day 4, we're going to start at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. London time. And we're going to begin with Lori Spagna. And the MC for that host is going to be Joan of Angels. And that's in the morning for 40 minutes. Following that, Carolyn Cory, she's going to get back to me later. So she might come on for a 20-minute segment in between myself and Lori. So we may have Carolyn Cory as the second guest. She's going to let me know a little bit later today. But then I'm going to be on and I'll have an hour. I'll introduce you to the new platform once again, the new website, present on some information. I think I'll probably bring Omar and Joan on to have a discussion as well. So we'll have an open discussion there. Right after that is Dan Winter. And then following Dan, we have Mark Sims. The times are a little bit off here, guys, by like 50 minutes. So I'm just going to tell you who's going to be here because I didn't update the website. I shifted some things just a little bit. After that, from 2:40 to around actually 1:40 to around 3:40, we're having an event that we just kind of put together yesterday, which is going to be the Ancient History panel. It's going to be like an hour and 40 minutes of pretty epic awareness in regards to our ancient civilizations. JJ, Desiree, Hurtak will be there. Manu will be there. Omar will probably be there. Aya will be there. Paul Anthony Wallace, who just created the book Scars of Eden that Omar introduced me to from Watchers Talk TV, will also be there. And maybe we'll have another guest. Following that, we have Costa Macreas, who is the head and the founder of ET Let's Talk. He does a lot of CE5 stuff and has connection with star beings. And then finally, at the end of the day, this presentation has changed to a 90-minute presentation. The last presentation of the whole day for tomorrow is going to be the largest presentation. It's going to be an hour and a half with Steve Mara himself, and he's going to be presenting on some epic extraterrestrial UFO consciousness information. So that is the schedule for tomorrow, everybody. All right. The new website, OG, is right now it's portaltoascension.org is our current site, but the new website is being built. It's actually built. We're just finishing the final touches on it now. So it's going to be launched within this month sometime. So we're launching it any day now. Most of you will probably watch the replay of this on YouTube. However, some of you will probably get the replay email when the new site is launched. And tomorrow, please come back, OG. Please come back, everybody, because if you haven't seen the new site, then I'm going to show it to you tomorrow and show you how to navigate it. And it's pretty epic. 3,000 hours plus footage, Netflix for consciousness, basically. And then also 10,000 hours of actual footage, including the paid events and all the other things that we do. So it's going to be pretty cool. All right, so this is how we're going to close out for today. Right now, we are going to breathe together and set an intention. We're going to set an intention for ourselves first, right? And it might be set the intention to be a pure conduit. It could be whatever you want. Set the intention for yourself and your own healing. We're going to set an intention for Earth. We're going to set an intention for the cosmos, and then set for our galaxy, right? And then set an intention for our entire universe. But what I want to do is, we've had so much information. We've had so much awareness over the last 3 days. We're going to do it in silence. I'm going to give a couple of prompts, set the intention for this, set the intention for this. But in between, we're going to have silence there. And the reason why I want to have silence is because there's been a lot of information. But sound healing, sound and vibration, I teach this in the sound course that Bridget, who's in the chat room right now, is a part of. Sound and vibration is not just sound. It's also the absence of sound, because even the silence is a vibration, right? Even the silence is a vibration. And being in that silence and in that void allows us to have that reflection of, of all that is. And we step away from our sides and we start reflecting on consciousness, who we are, what we're doing, day-to-day tasks. So in this moment here, I want to invite everybody all to start breathing together. Just breathe in through the nose gently and out through the mouth gently. In through the nose and out through the mouth. We're going to do this for about 30 seconds. In through the nose, out through the mouth. We have about 100 people here on YouTube. Well, about 100 people here in the Zoom room, plus all the individuals that are sitting with you guys right now watching this as well. So hello to your friends and family. But I want all of us here. There's probably a few hundred, maybe 1,000 plus people watching live. I just want you to breathe together, in and out. Continue breathing normally. For this meditation, we are not trying to change our reality. We're not trying to change our breath. We want to accept reality as it is. Feel the oxygen going in through your nose, touching your nostrils. Feel the air coming out of your mouth, touching your lips. Observing reality as it is. Accepting your reality in your current situation. Not trying to escape, but just being with the moment, with the now. As you're breathing in and out normally, we are going to set our intention for ourselves in this moment. Take a moment and set your intention for yourself. Continue breathing. Continue breathing. On the next inhale, begin your intention for the planet Earth, for Mother Earth. What is your intention for Earth and all the people on it? Continue breathing, accepting reality as it is. On your next inhale, what is your intention for our galaxy? Liberation, activation, disclosure, open contact. What is your intention for our galaxy? The Milky Way galaxy. Continue breathing. As we expand out of the galaxy, we observe the whole entire universe. What is your intention for the universe? Is it the same as your intention for the galaxy? What is your intention for the universe? Can be whatever you like. Keep breathing normally. Now, if I would like to invite you, if you would like to join us in 3 ohms, non-dogmatic chanting, the vibration of the universe. The Big Bang created an ohm. On the next inhale, take a deep breath, and we're going to begin with the first ohm. Inhale. Inhale. One more time.
Can I on with you?
Yes, one more time, brother, with me.
Let's do it.
Silence. Silence. Silence.
One more time.
You may keep your eyes closed. You may open them up as we take a journey into the realm of spoken word. freestyle spoken word. I am awakened, or am I awakened? Where did I come from? The stars, the galaxy vibrates within my soul. All things are a manifestation of the singularity within. Multiple singularities form into the 12 strands, into the 13th, when the void will go into, and man or humankind or womankind, we will merge again. We are the oneness, but we may have forgotten. The amnesia process has to be rewritten. Rewrite the contract so that we can go into the days of old, because the days of old have been in here for a long time, and a long time is only a construct of the human mind. The time, yes, it's a construct, all right. From our distance from Earth to the sun. But what happens when you exit the atmosphere? Do we have fear? Do we still have fear? Can we tear a rip in space-time, space-time, space-time? Can we tear a rip in space-time and go back to the central mind? But what is the central mind? What is the central mind? Well, it's the central sun. I came here to have fun. The central sun, the seat inside the middle of the universe, the black hole, the galactic black hole that we all know the old souls came from, so they can incarnate astral traveling into this world where we can mate, and then we can have children and then keep procreating so that we can keep resurrecting the consciousness and evolving our consciousness to the next level. But the level is a place where we may have to embrace the devil within. What is the concept of sin? Redefine all of the stuff. What is the concept of winning? What if I'm losing? Does it even matter? Or am I just climbing up the dimensional ladder to get to other realms of existence? I am persistent, so I will be on this mission. I envision for the future incarnations that the Christ consciousness will be arisen, so I tear the perception of this prison that we thought we were in. This industrial system that they put us within. But who are they? Are they just part of me? Am I just a reflection of the one, controlled in so many different fallacies? The anarchy inside my own brain has been here for so many times, so many years, so many times, so many lives, so many lives, so many lives. But now I know I'm here. I feel like I am here to eradicate the fear that has been within so many souls for so many generations. We have to be facing, it doesn't matter about the Masons. Can you be tasting the etheric resolution, the co-creation that we can do when we're protruding, and we can get rid of this light pollution and then make it light all around. The profound underground sound will always be here. The vibration of fear will only change to the vibration of love, because we can rearrange the neural networks in our brain, and that we can know that we can come from densities above, dimensions above, heavens above, heavens above, heavens above, heavens above are coming here now. Heavens above are coming here now. Do you feel it? There may be chaos, there may be challenge, there may be chaos, there may be challenges, there may be so many difficulties that we need to go through, there may be traumas that we need to bring peace to, but you know, we're here together. It's true, we are here together. So we can weather any single situation if we just choose to do it. We don't have to lose, kid. We can go up to another level if we want to. In every age, there's an opportunity for liberation. There's always an opportunity for liberation. Can this be the age that we choose to have liberation in a fast way, in an accelerated way, so that we can have peace for every single person in this galactic plane of extraterrestrials, just to name a few, Arcturians, Pleiadians, Syrians, who are part of me and part of you. I really feel so much love for all of you, but so many times this world gets to me too. So many times the tools that I have, I don't use. But that's okay. I forgive myself. I forgive myself every single day, every single night. I forgive myself for the things that I say, for the things that I think that comes in my brain. But sometimes there's nothing to forgive. Because you know why? We're all just cosmic kids. We're all just cosmic kids. One time I realized that the reason why we're here is to be mature kids. Have maturity. It's a paradox. This world is full of a paradox. It's all about a paradox. So can you be that mature kid? Can we get the cosmic consciousness with it? Can we eradicate the sin and make it into something else? I believe we can. And that's why I'm here with you in this earthly land. That's why I'm here with you in this earthly land. I love you all so much. Thank you very much.